Welcome to the Pewtercast. I'm Brent Allen, your host. Today is November the 22nd, 2016, and this is episode 21, Letters, Warchants, and Upsets. How sweet is victory, Bucs fans? I tell you what, it's almost as sweet as my grandma's cranberry dessert that I am going to be having in just a couple of days. That's right, Thanksgiving is on the way, and my family, as I'm sure yours does as well, has its traditions, and I got to tell you, that cranberry dessert is delicious. It is so good. You guys wish that you could reach through the podcasting radio world and grab a plate of this off of my table at Thanksgiving. But I tell you what, you know what else is sweet? You know what else? When you guys email in, or when you call in and leave a voicemail, or when you send in a review, and up to that, I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into the Instant Cast this past week. It was exceptional. Is that how you split those words out? Exceptional. It was exceptional. The chat room was full. We had tons of people calling in. And if you want to join us this week, it was just a fun time. If you want to go back and listen to it, it's up on the podcasting platform right now. You can go back in your feed. It should be one right before this particular episode. You can check it out there. Or if you want to join us live, we're at mixler.com/thepewtercast. And we're broadcasting live on Sunday nights at 10 o'clock. And that is a show where we've not watched all the game film just yet. Like, we watched the game, but we've not gone back and dissected the game film. We've not listened to all the press conferences. We've not done that. This is just how we're feeling about the show. So if you've got something you want to comment on about the game, feel free to call in. Again, that's Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Now, this week's a 4 o'clock game, so there's just a little bit of just a handful of hours between the end of the game and when our Instant Cast show will start. So you guys can definitely do that. Also, we have a brand new iTunes review to read this week that I want to get to, and it was really fun to receive that. This one is from Zach, Bucs fan, who says this is one of the better Bucs podcasts out there. Love hearing the fresh takes from Brent and all the guests he keeps bringing on to discuss the state of Buck Union. Keep it up and go Bucs. Well, thank you, Zach, Bucs fans, for sending in that review. And fans, if you want to do that as well, you can I always recommend iTunes. Go over to iTunes. You actually have, if you already subscribe to the podcast, then you got to search for it like it's a new podcast. And then there's a little button on there that says reviews. And you too can leave a review, and if you do that, you will receive our greatest thanks, and we'll probably read it here on air. I don't think we have missed a single review yet. And just like Zach had mentioned in his review, he said he loves all the guests. And so I'd say let's go ahead and bring on our guest for this week. He has been with us before. He's from pewterplank.com. James Yarcho is back with us. Welcome, James.
Hey, Brent, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, man. I am over here trying to stay warm. The weather has turned a little bit cold. We've got our Christmas lights up outside, which is really just trying to beat the weather. But nothing's going up inside until after we eat some turkey and that cranberry dessert I was talking about. So I'm getting pretty stoked. How about yourself, man? How's this week looking for you?
It's definitely been busy, but looking forward to Turkey Day and all that comes with it. Of course, the online shopping madness that will ensue between, my better half and I. So yeah, just going to enjoy the day and have football on, eat turkey, take a nap. It's Thanksgiving, man. It's my favorite.
There you go. I tell you, we've got a couple of international students that go to a local private school here who are staying with us over the Thanksgiving holidays. They're from China. And they keep asking to go out for Black Friday shopping, and I keep telling them, no, we are not. And they're so disappointed. And I started showing them some YouTube videos of just some of the craziness that happens, and they went, we stay home. Okay, we stay home. We know we're not going out. I was like, no. Cyber Monday, stay at home. You can do it in your pajamas on the couch if you want to do that. Make sure you get me something really nice, though. Well, James, how about we talk about the Bucs a little bit, huh? It's enough about Thanksgiving. On today's show, guys, we are going to be talking about the Bucs when they took on the Kansas City Chiefs away at the Arrowhead Stadium, and we'll talk about everything having to do with that because it was supposed to go one way, and in fact, it went a completely separate way. And then for our top 3 segment today, we're going to be taking a look at our top 3 comeback players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're going to close out the show with a brand new segment that we're calling What Are the Chances? You'll find out what that means when we get there. And, so James, why don't we get into it? We'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, that's great. But who are the chefs?
Not going anywhere for a while?
Great googly moogly.
Grab a Snickers.
You spell it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Pewtercast. This is episode number 21, Letters, Warchants, and Upsets. We're here talking about the Bucs taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, most people thought that this game was going to be a disaster for the Bucs and completely wrote them off. In fact, no so-called expert picked the Bucs to win, except for me. Now, James, I don't know if you consider yourself an expert. I think my only qualification for expert is I have this show, which I don't know if that really qualifies me or not, but I picked the Bucs to win. How about you?
I actually, right before the game started, had tweeted out, I did not feel this bad heading into a game all season except for Arizona. Like,
Right.
I had the same feeling about this game as I did the Cardinals game heading in, which, of course, I thought Tampa would be far more competitive against Arizona, but I did not expect this to be a win at all. And of course, to your point, let's not sell Derek Fournier short, because he always picks the Bucs to win.
Very true, and he would very much so be much more of an expert than I am. But I want to point that out on my
too.
I want to point that out just because I won a little bet over this whole thing. Which, if anybody listened to the episode from last week where we had the guys from Bucs and Brews, that was the bet. That was they looked at me and they said, "Wow, that's really simple." I said the Bucs will win. I'm not going to do anything specific other than the Bucs will win. And they took me up on it. They all said, no, there's no way. And I don't know if their show has come out just yet at the time of this recording, but it will. And I got a text from them last night saying how they did it. So it should be pretty fun. I think they're going to be paying off this bet over the course of a couple of weeks for that. But of course, we know the Bucs pulled off the ups. This is really, James, I think the upset of the season, at least so far. You know, and it came off of the foot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it came off the foot of Roberto Aguayo, who he was the one who scored all the points that really allowed us to pull out a victory. You know, if he would have missed any of his kicks, we would have been done. You know, we would have been talking about, well, at least we competed this week, you know, and especially in a week, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, in a week where there were so many missed kicks around the league. It seems to be a story that keeps popping up this week as, you know, I'm watching, ESPN and NFL Network and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So, James, why don't we get into this game? Let's start with some overall thoughts on the game, and I'll toss it to you first, my friend.
I just thought, you know, I don't want to say that it was as complete of a game as the Bears game, strictly because the offense did have so much trouble once they got into the red zone and they were having to rely on the foot of Aguayo. But man, what a difference Doug Martin has made over the last 2 weeks. And you could tell that he wasn't himself against the Bears, but he's really starting to get back into that game shape, and just the threat of him being in the backfield has opened things up for Winston in just a phenomenal way. And Winston is seeing the field, you know, as good as I think he ever has. He's just zoned in such a fantastic way that, you know, they really seem to be starting to put things together. They're starting to click. And, you know, the return of Russell Shepard is another huge gain for the offense, because he's such a difference maker. And even, Dirk Cutter on the Bucs Total Access show was saying that he even finds himself trying to pigeonhole Russell Shepard into being just a special teams guy, when really he's a difference maker on offense. And they showed that again yesterday. Defenses are keying in on Mike Evans, as they should be. He's arguably the best receiver in the league right now. At this point in the season, I would still say Antonio Brown is a better overall receiver, Julio Jones, AJ Green, but Evans is easily top 5. But teams are going to make Winston pick somebody else to beat them, and he's doing it, whether it's Braid or Humphreys or even Cecil Shorts, who got involved, Alan Cross. They're firing on all cylinders right now, which is really it's really a great thing to see after the struggles that we saw during the losing streak.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is the time of year where you want your team to start firing on all cylinders. You want to get better week over week over week, and that's certainly what we're seeing. This is the time of the season to begin to peak. And this is the time of season where you can either capitalize on some early wins or you can make up for some early losses. And, I'm going to say it. I think we're going to make up for some early losses as we pull down the stretch here. As far as some overall thoughts, you really nailed just about every single one of them, except I'm going to gripe just a little bit right now on this. This was a good team win. I agree with you. It was not as complete as the Bears game, but more so than the Bears game. Like, we competed in this game, we had a team to go in and compete against. And even if we would have come out at 17-16 as pissed as we all would have been, because it would have probably been off the foot of, a missed kick. We'd at least kind of be consoling each other. Well, at least we competed. But man, this team is finding a way to put the ball in the end. This team is finding a way to get points up on the board, one way or the other. However, I find this week being spoiled, though, by some people, and I might ruffle some feathers here, including maybe your own, James, and you kind of laid into somebody that I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. But on the other side, I think you did it appropriately, not in a poor way. And specifically what I'm talking about is I'm getting tired of seeing how people are using how much money a person is making to judge if that player is playing up to snuff. Like, as if it's their money that they're paying out. You want to rip Levante, or you want to rip Gerald or Grimes or Martin or even Sweezy for not playing or not showing up. Fine. Have some data to back it up, like you did in the pick six this past week, where you talked a little bit about Levante. I even joked around and kind of made fun of Levante a little bit for catching a full-on suplex in this past game.
Ware trucked him.
Yeah.
Ware just absolutely trucked him.
Yeah. Yeah. You said trucked, not another word that I'm going to have to bleep out. So I just want to clarify that.
Exactly.
He full on did. And I mean, it happened, it happened. And is Levante having the best year this year or not? I don't know. The reports that I keep hearing about is it's a new system, and the new system doesn't take advantage of his skill set as much. So, maybe it's that, but I don't know enough of what's going on. All we know is that he's not showing up on the stat sheet like we're used to. However, using how much money somebody is making, you're making $100 million, or you're doing this, or you're making $12 million, or you're making $35 million, and you just got hurt, or throw DeMar Dotson into that group as well. To use the type of money that they're making to then turn around and bash them, to me, is retarded. And I guess I'm just going to make a guess that people who do that are just jealous that they aren't making that kind of money. And I got to admit, I kind of am too.
Well, who wouldn't be?
Right. But if you want to judge them, to those people, here's what I would say. Fine. Strap out some pads and go out and do what they do and try to run the routes and block the people that they're doing, and then come back and see how much you complain and see if whether or not you don't think they should be making the money that they're making. And that's my overall thought, because you nailed everything else that was positive. This is just something that has been irking the ever-loving piss snot out of me this week, as I've seen people out there in social media and other Bucs media outlets that are going out there. Let's narrow this down just a little bit, James. Let's get into the offense. Any specific thoughts you had towards the offense for this game?
Well, and real quick, I want to piggyback off of what you just said. I agree wholeheartedly that using a player's contract to judge, if they're doing enough or not it's asinine. And Doug Martin's another one where you'll hear people say, oh, well, he got paid, so he went and got himself hurt again. And he's milking the injury. It's ridiculous. And of course, you're going to have the McCoy bashers uniting that, oh, well, he didn't have any tackles, he didn't show up. Did he or did he not have a tipped pass that resulted in a Chris Conti interception that, without his hand getting up in the air, Conti may still have intercepted the ball, but he also may not have, and it might have been 6.
It sure
or like they don't make plays in the fourth quarter, but on that last play, Levante's the one that forced the fumble, and McCoy's the one that recovered it.
Mm-hmm.
And
essentially they ended the game, right? They saved the game from being.
Exactly.
From them getting a last minute score, those two guys, and you bring up the exact point. Sorry,
right.
Go ahead, keep going.
But those type of plays aren't going to fit the false narrative that has really just taken off for whatever reason. I know the reason, but I'll just leave it at that. That it's more than a stat sheet.
Yeah.
excuse me, it's more than, McCoy having to get every single sack. I mean, he's the 4th all-time leader in franchise history in sacks right now.
Right.
But it's about creating the opportunities for the other players around him. It's, people want to talk about Winston doesn't have any help on offense. All he has is Mike Evans. Well, McCoy hasn't had any help on the defensive line ever. Right. No matter how much they've tried. Daquan Bowers, he's not in the league. Brian Price, he's not in the league. Michael Johnson was a bust. Mm-hmm. All these players that they brought in have not contributed whatsoever. You have Clinton McDonald, who plays fantastic ball, but he's hurt more than McCoy is. But McCoy gets the bad rap. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. The using the contract to judge a player is just moronic, and people need to really just pay attention to what truly is happening and not look at, did he have any tackles? Did he have any sacks? He better make a play in the fourth quarter. He may be making a play indirectly by taking on 2-3 guys and freeing up Robert Ayers or freeing up Clinton McDonald or Noah Spence.
And, Gerald McCoy specifically talked about that. He specifically talked about that at the beginning of the season, saying, hey, if I can take 2 or 3 people myself and that frees up, Will Golston down on the end to go down there and make a sack, then let me take on 2 or 3 people. And I find it real funny. This week is real showing. We talk about Mike Evans this week and how, he was taken out of the game. He's being double teamed. Other teams, and they know that we don't have another elite wide receiver, so they're just keying in on Mike Evans. And and we've seen that on, that certainly shows up on the stat sheet over the last couple of weeks that Mike Evans has been way down. Not just the stat sheet, but in fantasy points as well. He's been way down these last 2 weeks. However, he's taking on a couple of people. But when the same thing happens to Gerald McCoy, people will just want to say, he's not playing. He didn't show up. He didn't do anything today. And that's, that's the thing that just, don't spoil a win, people. That's, I think what I want to say is don't spoil the win. This has been a great week and this was a great game. And I don't care whether it was Gerald McCoy, who is making $100 million over however many years his contract is, or whether it's Channing Ward, he's not even on the team anymore, who Devontae Lambert, I don't know, pick an undrafted free agent who's making the league minimum, whether whoever it is, as a team, they did pretty damn well on this particular game. So, all right, let's get off of that. Let's go over to the offense. Any thoughts you had on the offense today, James?
Just kind of what I touched on earlier. Winston, one of the best games of his young career, even though he only had the one touchdown, but it proved to be the game winner. Right. Finding these other options outside of Mike Evans and really raising the level of play of his teammates. Without somebody like Winston, you're not going to be getting these kinds of performances out of players like Cecil Shorts or Alan Cross or Cam Brate. This team is filled with undrafted free agents, right, at key positions, and that's not a recipe for success. It truly isn't. And like I spoke about in my pick 6 column, that this team is still void of talent. They still need playmakers. They still need to use a high draft pick on a receiver to complement Evans. They do need that help. But what Winston has been able to do with what he has around him is just outstanding. And it's really starting to show, to go into a place like Arrowhead and snap a 10-game home win streak, I believe they were on a 5-game win streak this season. To be able to do that in the manner in which he did was just, it was truly something that was just very special for not only the Bucs fans, but I think the franchise as a whole, moving forward this season and into next.
Yeah, and I really hope that based off of Jameis's performance this past week, that we can really put any talk of the sophomore slump of Jameis to bed. He's just a guy who's in his second year. It's not a slump. He's just in his second year, as is, by the way, Quan Alexander, Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, a handful of these guys. It's just their second year. It's not necessarily a slump. They're just going through the normal progressions and growth. But I got to tell you, Jameis, he was the most poised, I think, in this game that I've seen him all year. In any situation, and they went in, and how can we not talk about it? The letter that he wrote earlier in the week, to pull the entire team together, and we don't know the exact contents of that letter. I hope we get to find out. I really, maybe not this season, maybe in a couple of seasons, but it would be such an interesting study to see what's going on. But we can imply some stuff. He talked about them being family. He talked about him being proud to be their quarterback. Which, things like that would just tell you like how heartfelt that particular letter had to have been, and the way people are going to rally around him, and especially having all the undrafted free agents. He needs those guys because those undrafted free agents know that chances are come next season, they're going to get a free agent or draft somebody who is better at their position than they are, and they really may not be with this team next year. So to be able to rally people behind you, it's just a study of leadership, which is amazing. And then to turn around and go out and have the Chiefs do what they do every single game, which is that big war chant, the OOO chant or the chop song chant, whatever people want to call it. That was fantastic. I didn't think about it. I mean, did anyone think about it doing anything for Jameis until he mentioned it on the podium in his press conference of going, you guys remember I went to FSU. I'm a Seminole, right? Like that fired me up. And so, man, it's and people were talking, do we bring the war chant into Ray J? And we'll talk about that later. But I don't know. It'll be real interesting to see what happened. And, with Mike especially, let's talk about him. We talked about him being taken out of the game and other people stepped up. But Mike Evans, the few plays that he had were huge. They were big. They were timely. Sure. They were right when we needed them to be. And to top it all off, his presence in the backfield at the very end of the game on defense forced and took away the option for doing a big Hail Mary pass. You're not going to toss that to Mike Evans if you're Alex Smith. So they had to go to that Stanford man play, which almost never works. It's very exciting when it does, but it never works almost. And, the game ends the way it ended. And, hey, offensive line played lights out, and it was really a good team effort. I suppose the big negative takeaway that everybody is saying this week, and we can't disagree with it, is you got to put the ball in the end zone more. You got to get the ball there. But other than that, man, I thought the offense was pretty good.
Absolutely. Yep. You nailed it there. And even on that last play, I'll be honest, I was one of the people yelling for Mike Evans to be, playing safety when the Bears were going for the Hail Mary. This week, it didn't make too much sense to me just because they were way too far for Alex Smith to be able to get the ball down there. So to me, that was putting Mike Evans in a situation where he could risk injury, trying to make a tackle or trying to, make a play should the ball have gotten that close to him. Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of Evans being that safety, essentially on the Hail Mary hands team,
right?
To go up and catch the ball, because God knows he's going to be able to jump higher and get those arms up higher than pretty much any receiver that we're going to face.
Right. Unlike,
Grimes or Hargraves or Werner, just it's the height issue, right. As well as the corners have played recently, that's always going to be a factor.
Yeah. And, and I understand your point, but there's such a thing as even just the tactic of putting him out there that sure. You kind of gamble that there, if Mike Evans is there, then they're not going to go with that option. So he theoretically should be safe. Now, Mike's a baller. He's going to go out and do what he needs to do to make the play happen. And I got to be honest, if Mike Evans gets hurt saving the game for us, you never want to see anybody hurt, but that's a good reason to get hurt if you're going to get hurt. That's much better than just a stupid somebody fell on my ankle while we were, on a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 9 or something like that, Yeah. So if it's going to happen, you want to kind of see it happen there. And specifically, if it's going to happen, you want to see it happen in a situation like that in the Super Bowl. But it didn't. And, I think it was just a calculated risk, on Cutter and Todd Monken's part.
Absolutely.
For what they have there. Well, man, why don't we jump over to defense? Any big thoughts you had on defense this week? Because they were something else.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in the lack of the pass rush, but I also understood at the same time that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of blitzing going on in this game. That was something that they were able to do to Chicago. They were able to run a lot of different blitz schemes and exotic formations and get after Cutler. And in this game, Alex Smith is so quick to get rid of the ball and so aware of what's happening around him to be able to get out of the pocket, like we saw him scramble for the touchdown, that you start sending players, you start sending guys, and it's going to free up somebody else and probably create a big play for the Chiefs offense. So I would have liked to have seen a little more pass rush out of our front four, but I understood, kind of the scheme that Mike Smith was going with. I thought the corners overall played pretty well. Werner stepped in for Grimes.
Yeah.
And he was very up and down. He gave up a couple of big plays, but he had a couple of amazing pass breakups. So you kind of see why he's not in the starting lineup. He is susceptible to giving up those big plays, but I mean, there aren't too many corners in the league that Tyreek Hill isn't going to get past. I mean, that dude is like a fart in a frying pan. You're not going to be able to contain him.
Right. A fart in a frying pan. I've never heard that before. Oh, that's funny.
That's something my dad always.
Please do not tell my 4-year-old that.
Said I got.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I mean, I tweeted this out. I loved seeing Alteron Werner back in action. Not because I think he's our best corner or anything like that. I think I just have a soft spot for the guy. Like he's been with the team a while. Like, I want to see him do well. It was good to see him back out there and to see him make no mistake, he had some big plays. He came up with some big stops himself. And as you say, I remember one play where he gave up. I don't remember more than that, but you're watching the game, sooner than I have. So he had that. And then, you got to talk about Chris Conte back there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't ignore him. Second week in a row comes up with not just an interception, but a critical interception. Last week it was the pick six, which set the Bucs off. Really set the game, the tone of the game, the rest of the way. And then in this one, it really saved a touchdown. And I think I heard Cutter mentioning at some point that was actually a 10-point turnaround if you think about it, because where they were, they could have scored 7. They would have at least gotten 3, and then we turned around and put it in the end zone and got a touchdown off of it. So, you take that 3 that we saved from them plus the 7 that we got at least, it's at least a 10-point turnaround. For a guy that Buccaneer fans love to hate, it's hard to hate him 2 weeks in a row after what he's been going through. The big thing on defense, and I can't get past it. I don't know what happened. I don't know what broke down. I can't get it. But watching Alex Smith he meandered. He stopped and picked a flower for his mom on the way as he walked into the end zone, completely untouched. Big open. I mean, middle of the field was as wide open as center field in baseball in the offseason. Like there was nothing to stop him from running into the end zone on that particular play. And I like I said, I don't know what happened there, but hey, other than that though, man, I thought defense just the big thing I had here was big stop, because I mentioned this on the instant cast. That's what I was going to say here. I kind of call this the game of the red zone, because it seemed like every drive the team was marching down to the field to get in the end zone, and I mean both teams. Like the Chiefs would march down, they'd get in the end zone. The Bucs would march down, we'd get, or not the end zone, the red zone. We'd march down, we'd get in the red zone. They'd get the ball back, they'd go to the red zone. It just felt like, to me, that we were going back and forth, and I don't know what the actual numbers are on that. But the fact that our defense came up with stop after stop after stop and just stood up, I can't say enough about the defense.
Yeah, I mean, they really did. This is 2 weeks in a row now that we've seen almost a complete transformation of the defense. You take a look at Kansas City's opening drive where they came away with the field goal, and they had the ball for, what was it, 8 minutes? Yeah. 7 minutes, 8 minutes?
Yeah.
And then the rest of the game, they had the ball for less than a quarter. The Buccaneers' time of possession ended up being, I believe, 37 minutes. compared to the 23 for the Chiefs.
Right.
That's an outstanding job of not only the offense sustaining long drives, but the defense getting off the field.
Right.
And that's something that we haven't seen. Every time there was a third down, it's like, in the minds of Buccaneer fans, myself included, it creeps in, all right, how are we going to blow this one? How are they going to convert this time?
Right.
You're always waiting for that other shoe to fall. And in this game, it just never really did.
Right. Right. And, and those are the things, as we talk about so often on this show, changing from a culture of losing to a culture of winning, that fans will have that mindset changed the more that the team has that mindset changed. And Robert Ayers talked about it a lot on his radio show this last week about really about culture and about expecting to just go out and win. And he mentioned it again in his locker room interview after the game this past week, is every time I go out, I expect to win. And when that begins to infect the team, when they go out on a third down and they say, hey, no problem, we're going to get this one. And they expect that to happen. And then they do, then that turns around to us as Bucs fans, not waiting for that shoe to drop. And how nice would that be as a fan to not wait for that other shoe to drop, to just know, hey, we can go out and do this, and actually be a little bit surprised if we don't.
Yeah, it'll transform from how are they going to blow this to, all right, which defensive player's turn is it to make the play?
Right.
Everybody on the team is capable of making that game ending play. So which one's it going to be? Which is kind of how it was back in the late 90s and early 2000s, that you didn't know which defensive player was going to make the play, but you could be up by one and the other team could have the ball with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter and all three timeouts, and the Bucs would find a way to win. And I think that's really what this game did. Was for so long, this team has found a way to lose. Uh-huh. You look at the Rams game, you look at the Broncos game. This team finds ways to lose, and this time they found a way to win.
Yeah. And that part of that, and part of changing the finding a way to win, we have a tendency to want to look back and find the moment. When was the moment that all of that changed? Because things happen in a moment. And I've referenced the Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, that shit ends now moment that really turned around. But it really can't just be that one moment. It's got to be a series of moments spread out over the course of several seasons that really changed that up. And so we look back and we think of the scramble play by Jameis Winston last week, which will go down as his yearly highlight unless something else more miraculous happens. We look at there, various plays. We look at this game. We look at last week's game where it was a blowout. We look at this week's game where it was not a blowout, but we were ahead the whole game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we were behind on the scoreboard at all in this entire game, but it was close.
Well, the Chiefs scored the field goal on the opening drive, so we were down 3-0, and then tied it on the next drive. And after that,
then it was
because the Alex Smith touchdown put them up 10-6.
Okay. Well, whatever. Forget what I just said there. Everybody, erase that. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the game, it was 19-17, not 17-16. Is my point.
Exactly.
And you have to continue to put those moments together. And which one was the one where it all started? Was it the letter writing? It happened, after a Wednesday practice. Maybe it was then. Whatever moment you point back to, just remember, Bucs fans, it is a continuity of moments as we move forward, and these are all those moments that are happening. We are watching right now the change happen. These are the little things. Change doesn't happen immediately. Change it's a long-term thing, but you have to, maybe it started when Cutter said, hey, let's keep all the black jerseys out of the lower bowl, and everybody lost their ever-loving mind going, well, I don't know. I don't know. All right, off of that, normally I skip over the special teams, or at least I have the last couple weeks, but I don't think we can skip over special teams. Any thoughts towards special teams for this particular week?
Just Aguayo perfecto.
I got to tell you, one of my favorite memes right now is where they took his face off of an interview and they put it on the Shining poster where he's looking through the door. Yes. It's so creepy, but it's so good. And,
that was the smile he had after the game winner against Carolina.
Was it? Nice. It's creepy, but it works. And if we can put that picture in everybody's mind as they're coming out to face the Bucs, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, Roberto Aguayo, he was perfect. He was perfect. I mean, how do you knock that? He was perfect.
on a day when every kicker apparently had a kickers only meeting and said, okay, we're sick of this long extra point thing, so everybody miss one. Let's get it moved back forward. And Aguayo didn't get the memo, I guess. And yeah, he was, you can't say enough about him. He was perfect. You had Vinatieri miss his first field goal in like 47 attempts or something insane like that.
Yeah.
You had Gostkowski and Hauschka missing extra points, but Aguayo, it was the war chant. That's all. It was the war chant.
Yeah. It didn't just affect Jameis. It affected Aguayo. Let's draft a whole bunch of other Seminoles. What do we think?
There's a whole lot of people on Twitter that hate the idea of doing the war chant and Ray J. I for one, you know what? If it helps, it helps. I don't care. I have no affiliation to any Florida college, but I don't care if you're a Gator fan, a Cane fan, a Knight fan, a Bull fan, a Buckeye fan, whoever.
Wow. Look at you pulling out every single Florida college within it. 100 mile
and then I
radius.
threw in Ohio State just because that's local for me, but I'm also not a fan of theirs.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it riles up the team and it gets Jameis in the zone the way he is, then what does it really hurt? It doesn't matter that the war chant is not part of the Buccaneers, but I can't think of a pirate chant. It's just
arg, 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 arg.
Yeah, pretty much.
That'd be so lame.
And you have people saying, well, is the Tampa Bay chant not enough? It's like, well, apparently not.
Right. Maybe.
So I'm one of those people that I think it's silly to get so upset about the notion to do a Seminole war chant inside of Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah.
It's not hurting anybody. And if it helps, it helps. Who cares? The Chiefs fans were doing it on third down to try to throw him off. And all it did was allow him to go 11 for 16 on third downs. They only punted the ball twice.
Right. Here's the thing. And I'll talk about that. To do the war chant and Raymond James, I'm kind of like you. If it helps, it helps, man. Let's do it. The thing that I would be nervous about is people still really hang on to their college affiliations, and it would kill so many people who are Gator fans to hear the to hear the war chant. And the only thing that makes me nervous is let's just say a collection of fans start doing that, and then other fans start booing those fans. I can imagine being on the field not knowing who's getting booed. Like, why are they booing us right now? We just completed our third down conversion here.
All right,
have it just be the infighting of the fans who are all Buccaneers fans. It'd be stupid if it happened, but I just could see that happening,
Well, then I'll throw out a compromise to every Florida State and Florida fan listening. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the war chant, but instead of doing the tomahawk chop, everybody do the gator chomp. So everybody gets their share. We're doing the arm motion for Florida. We're doing the sound for Florida State. Winston's happy. Aguayo's perfect. Hargraves is dancing, and we win. It's compromise.
Or we do the war chant on offense, and we do the gator chomp on defense.
You know what? I like that too.
There you go. And then I think we got to pull out something for the Oklahoma Sooners and whatever other colleges are represented. Okay, we have devolved away from our conversation. Let's bring it back. Here's the one thing that I want to say about Aguayo, and then I want to move on. And I feel like we're back in a place which actually is not a horrible place to be, because it's better than where we have been, but I want to see us get past this as a fan base. And I feel like we're back towards the beginning of the season as far as Aguayo is concerned, where we were kind of bracing ourselves, saying, now listen, he's going to go out there, it's going to happen that he's going to miss a few, and we're bracing ourselves for the outcry that's going to happen. Now, I don't know that we really anticipated he was going to have all of the struggles he did, though we kind of did all at the same time. Like, we hoped he wouldn't, but we knew he would just based on history. And I feel like we're back to that spot. Like, he's doing great. That's awesome. I'm kind of bracing myself for the I don't want to curse him, but for the chance that he might miss another one, and the outcry that comes, that just sets all Bucs fan base back to, he's the worst kicker in the league, yet again. Because chances are he possibly could. I mean, it's within the realm of possibility he could miss one before the end of the season. But he's been doing great lately, and I just want to, hashtag I'm with 19. I'm still riding that hashtag, and I will for all the times that he's wearing a Bucs uniform.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. If you're not with them, then you're essentially rooting for the team to not score, which in turn roots for them to lose. So it's counterproductive to sit there and continue to dwell on it. At this point, when people are blowing up Twitter with Aguayo sucks and worst draft pick ever and Jason Light needs to be fired anymore, I just ignore it all. And I've started muting people. I've started blocking people from the Pewter Plank account to keep doing it just because I'm tired of seeing it. It's over. It's done with. We have 6 games left in this season, and people are still dwelling on something that happened in May.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. For the sake of time, why don't we get to our final thoughts and grades? We'll start with grades: offense, defense, special teams, and then an overall grade. And any final thoughts you have wrapping up this game, or maybe even taking a look at the Seahawks game coming up.
All right, we'll go lightning round real quick on this. I'll give the offense a B+. They didn't get in the end zone enough, but they played great. So I just have to knock them a little bit for settling for the 4 field goals rather than getting three touchdowns instead of 1. The defense I will give I think I gave them an A-. I would have liked to have seen more pass rush, but you can't deny what they did to a 7-2 first place Chiefs team inside of their own stadium. And special teams, I'll give them an A. We didn't have that flashy return or that big tackle on a Chiefs return, but Aguayo was perfect, and you got to give him credit for that. So overall, I give the team an A. I would have loved to see more touchdowns like any of the rest of us would, but you beat a first place team in their home stadium. Yeah, it was huge. The team deserves an A for that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were looking at my notes at all here, which would be very interesting considering how this is set up. But I also gave the offense a B+ for the exact same reason that you said, which is they couldn't put it in the end zone. I gave the defense an A, and that really comes on the lots and lots of big stops. But what really... maybe an A- when you consider that trot into the end zone by Alex Smith. It's so hard for me to swallow, and that one is just such a sticking point for me, and maybe I need to let it go. But still an A- is not a bad grade, especially where this defense has been here over the course of the season. I'm going to give the special teams an A+. They did everything we needed them to do and then some. They didn't allow any big returns. Aguayo drained every single kick that he was asked to do. Anger punted and pinned every punt exactly where we needed him to punt. And it was not just a solid effort. They went over and above, and that clips them all the way up to an A+ for me. So that brings an overall grade for me as an A- on the entire game for all the exact same reasons that you said. We've got to see those touchdowns, but at the same time, it was a great game. It was a really good game for what they did. So do you have any final thoughts as we look towards the Seahawks for next week?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing that I've been saying since the beginning of the season, and actually turns out a couple other people have really been saying this, so I want to give credit where credit's due. This is the game that I think if we go this game hangs whether or not we are relevant in national media coverage again. If we can go out and we can do to the Seahawks what we just did to the Chiefs, or better yet, what we did to the Bears a couple weeks ago, that's going to all of a sudden, we're going to be back on ESPN. We're going to be back on the NFL Network. We're going to be back. People are going to be talking about what's happening with the Bucs. And I, by the way, 100% believe that we can and we will beat the Seahawks. And it's important to keep the streak going that we have right now and to get a streak going for winning at home. And I'm going to echo what Cutter said again this week is fill up the lower bowl and keep the Seahawks jerseys out. That's a great thing for a coach to call fans out on. It's so easy for us to do that, unless it's a monetary thing, but it's so easy for us to fill up the lower bowl with our people. Let's make that happen. And I think that's a good thing. And hey, listen, we're 2-0 on the third quarter of the season. And I think as long as we keep up doing what we're doing in third quarter for the games, we're going to find these quarters for the rest of the season are going pretty well ourselves. Well, Pewtercast fans, now we'd like to know your thoughts on our thoughts. Do you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation? Well, you can do that by dropping us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter @thepewtercast or at facebook.com/thepewtercast, or you can always call into the Instant Cast show right after the game. Sunday nights, 10 o'clock. You can call in and talk with us there as well. Well, coming up next, we're going to jump into our top 3 segment, looking at our top 3 comeback players for the Bucs. Stay with episode 21 of the Pewtercast, and now it's time for our top 3 segment of the show. Now, admittedly, this one kind of threw me for a loop, and it took a little more thinking than I was anticipating when we came up with this one, James. But I got to tell you, it was one I couldn't get away from. You know, coming off the back of what I affectionately call the much maligned Chris Conte and his 2-week streak, with Alteron Werner jumping back in, with Doug Martin jumping back in. I thought we'd take a look at what some of our favorite comeback players for the Bucs have been, our top 3. So James, I'm going to toss it to you first. Did you have any criteria when you were picking your list, and what is your number 3?
I actually did not have any criteria. I just basically tried to think of which players in Bucs history had come back, and I actually ended up using 3 different kinds of comebacks.
Okay.
So my number 3 pick is running back Warrick Dunn, who played for the Bucs from 97 to 2001 before he went to the Atlanta Falcons, of course, and was the cause of many nightmares for Bucs fans, and then he came back.
Right.
And that was in 2008, before he ended up being a victim of the house cleaning done when they got rid of Garcia and Brooks and Gruden and broke the hearts of all of us. So, you know, he was just one of those players that was always amazing to watch from college and into a Buccaneers uniform. And then, you know, of course, the division rivalry with Atlanta before he essentially came home. And so that one kind of popped out in my head pretty early on, that, you know, that's a very literal interpretation of a comeback player,
because he came back. Yeah, you know, Warrick Dunn's a great pick, and actually I have him down as one of my honorable mentions for exactly the reasons you said. And, you know, I kind of always like it when a player, you know, if they get jettisoned from a team, then they come back and they re-sign with their former team for like a day so that they can retire as that particular player. You know, but that's not what Warrick Dunn did here. He actually came back and played a season and may or may not have been able to play, you know, a second season or even a third season with the Bucs, had that house cleaning, as you mentioned, not occurred, which a lot of us are still shaking our heads at. So yeah, good pick. For my number 3, my criteria, actually I did something similar to you, and I wish you would quit reading my notes. I had to ask the question, well, coming back from what? Like what determines a comeback player? And is it an injury? Is it, they just had a down year or a down game, or from being cut altogether, or being traded or something of that nature? So I decided to spread it around and actually just give my top comeback player from each one of those categories, which it sounds like you might be doing something similar. So now, oddly for me, all of these players are currently on our roster, which I hate. I hate it when that happens, but it kind of makes sense, I think, when you consider the ups and downs that this team has had in recent years. And truthfully, I don't know much of Bucs history in terms of players before 1998, 97, somewhere around there, 97. So I kind of got to go with some of the recent guys. So that being said, for my number 3, I picked the guy who is coming back from injury. And for that, I picked Doug Martin, who is, he had a huge year last year, coming off of 2 years actually of injuries. And even this year, we see him doing it yet again. He had an injury earlier this year. And while he certainly is, he is still shaking off the rust, as we talked about a little bit earlier. He is really getting back into form. And he, even watching this last game, some of the blocks that he was throwing are not ones that you would really expect from a player who is still maybe kind of nursing a hamstring injury. You don't want that to take you back out again. So I've been really super impressed with Doug Martin. And I'm really glad that he's getting $35 million out of my own personal pocket to be our running back, hurt or not. So that's why Doug Martin makes my number 3 for injury comeback player for the Bucs.
Yeah, and I like that pick. As we talked about earlier, you can see a very obvious difference in this offense when he's on the field compared to when he's off. So anytime he's on the field, it's a great thing. And trust me, nobody hates being unable to play due to injury more than the player himself. Yeah. And that's especially true for Doug Martin.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, James, what do you got for your number 2 pick for comeback player for the Bucs?
Number 2, and I'll throw this in since you said you had all 3 of yours are currently on the roster. I have none. Okay. That are currently on the roster. So we balance out here.
Good.
But my number 2 comeback player is one of an emotional comeback, and that was Joe Jurevicius. And so many Buccaneers fans still dearly, dearly love Joe Jurevicius to this day for helping win that Super Bowl and playing the way he did all season long. But, of course, everyone knows the story of the NFC Championship against the Eagles, and his son was born and fighting for his life in a hospital, and in walks Joe into the locker room and says that, he's going to play. And without Joe Jurevicius, they don't win that NFC Championship. They don't go on to a Super Bowl. He had the biggest momentum shifting play arguably in franchise history with that catch and run. And, you can still hear Gene Deckerhoff's voice saying, you go, Joe, your baby boy was just born and you're trying to score a touchdown for him. Yeah. So that was another version of a comeback to me, was being a parent and trying to put yourself in that situation. I couldn't function if one of my children was in a hospital fighting for his life, let alone go play, a championship football game in front of, thousands of people in a visiting stadium and millions of people watching at home. It's just, it was an incredible moment for him.
Yeah, man, I love Joe Jurevicius. I have made that known on this show ever since I can remember. I love seeing his name. His name's just fun to say, Joe Jurevicius. But I mean, for all the reasons you just listed there, he was I hated when we lost him, Ibrahim Hart. So yeah, man, that's a great pick. Gosh, I think I could function if one of my kids was in a hospital, but I'd be functioning at the hospital. Sorry fans, I would not be playing. I don't think. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so we'll see. Well, for my number 2, I chose for this one to be comeback player who's coming back from a down year. Which, by the way, let me just clarify: these are not necessarily in ranked of like 1, 2, and 3. It's just, it's just the next one up. So, for coming back from a down year, This one probably is no surprise to most people, but I'm picking Mike Evans. Now, his numbers last year, with the exception of touchdowns and drops, actually were not bad. And we've talked about that on this show before as well. They weren't bad, but overall it was a down year for him simply because of the lack of touchdowns. I think he had 3 on the year last year, and the number of drops that he had, which had he not had the drops, he probably would have had the touchdowns. But it was just a down year. And this year he has been so poised and so steady. I don't think I have seen him mouth off or say anything trying to sway the referees his way once. Now I might be wrong, but I've not noticed him doing it once. And these last 2 weeks, notwithstanding, as he is, he's been taken out of the game with the double teams and different things, and the other players are stepping up. All of that notwithstanding, Mike Evans gets my comeback player award for player coming back from a down year.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. I mean, and like we talked about earlier, he's having arguably the best season at this point right now of any receiver in the league. I would take him in a heartbeat over Odell Beckham Jr. without hesitation. It's been fantastic to watch him perform the way he has this year. He leads the NFL in touchdown receptions. So that's a big comeback off of the numbers that he had last year. So I love that pick.
Yeah. And, and I mean, when we juxtapose, here's the thing, you look at Mike Evans versus like OBJ, you got those guys. I would rather have Mike Evans on this team, if not else. All right, here comes the C word again, for what he contributes to the culture of the team. I don't want to deal honestly with Odell Beckham Jr.'s stuff or some of the other guys. I'm sure are fine people. I'm sure they're fine, upstanding people, but I like Mike Evans. I like what he brings to this team. And even that little thing that happened, 2 weeks ago, the way he responded and the way he came back from that, it was so classy. It was so great, and it didn't have all the crap surrounding it that Austin Seferian-Jenkins did earlier this year. It was just classy. He's a young kid. I made a case earlier. Jameis and a bunch of these other guys, they're in their second year. Mike's only in his third year. Imagine when Mike hits his 6th, 7th, 8th year. He gets some real experience under his belt. For being as an upstanding of a guy as he is, I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. All right, well, let's get off of Mike Evans and let's move over to your number 1 pick, James.
All right, for my number 1, which I honestly thought that we were going to have the same number 1, Cadillac Williams. This is a guy. Yeah. This is a guy that tore his patella tendon against the Panthers in October of 2007. He rehabs, he fights back. He finally gets back on the football field 14 months after he got injured the first time, just to turn around and get his other patella tendon torn against the Raiders. Gotcha. He ended up finishing, after he came back from the second tear, he finished second in the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award behind Tom Brady, because God forbid Brady not get something. But his first full season back after tearing 2 patella tendons, he rushes for 821 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, those aren't staggering numbers. Those aren't, Pro Bowl numbers, but what they are is a guy who had essentially 2 what should have been career-ending injuries come back and do something like that. And Cadillac, to this day, still one of my absolute favorite players to ever wear a Buccaneers uniform. I have an autographed 16x20 photo of him hanging up on my Buccaneers wall. And the grit and the tenacity that he showed to fight back when it would have been just as easy to give up and say, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I earned a lot of respect for him, and I hated to see him leave after the 2010 season. LeGarrette Blount was a good running back for us then, and I thought it would have been great to keep Cadillac and Blount together, and instead Cadillac goes and finishes his career with the St. Louis Rams. Yeah,
and then, of course, LeGarrette Blount goes up there and joins Mr. Brady. Sigh. Yeah. I don't know that I knew that about Cadillac Williams, and I'm not sure how I missed that. that feels like new news to me that I remember him rupturing the one, but I don't remember him rupturing the other. And I don't know if the one that I was aware of was his first one or his second one, but, yeah, I just, as I reach back into my memory, I just remember him being there and then not, and then he was back. And then he was back. Yeah, I don't even remember, when he came back for what'd you say for the next game. So yeah, good pick, Cadillac Williams. Yeah. Well, for my number one, this is going to go to the comeback player who was cut from the team, and I don't know. This has quickly become, I think, a fan favorite player. I hope he's getting more jerseys being sold these days. But I'm talking about the man who is making America great again, Cameron Brate, Harvard graduate, Cam. He has just been so solid and so terrific, and he's really stepping up into a spot that especially as an undrafted free agent who was cut by the Bucs, was picked up by the Saints and on their practice squad, was standing across the line from us last year while we were at the Saints over there in the Superdome. And what was it? I think it was that Monday or Tuesday he got a phone call bringing him back over to the Bucs, where they signed him to the active roster. And he's just stayed home ever since. But to go through that story, and he was a utility player last year, to come into camp this year being the number one tight end on our team in a room full of tight ends, even over a number 2 draft pick. It just speaks volumes. And to watch, how clutch he's been over the last couple of weeks, Cameron Brate definitely makes my being cut comeback player of as the number one comeback player for the Bucs, somebody who's got cut. Do you have any honorable mentions before we get out of here?
The only honorable mentions I really had was I had originally thought about Doug Martin, and then realized that the first 3 players that I thought of were running backs. So I wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. And so he got bumped. And then the other player that I thought about was Antonio Bryant, who was, he had played with the Browns and was suspended, for drug use and, essentially released from the team, and that's when the Bucs picked him up, and he had the best season of his career with the Bucs, and that was Gruden's last year. And of course, a lot of Buc fans remember that one-handed touchdown catch that he had against Carolina on a Monday night. And then he was franchise tagged, ended up getting hurt, and just never really bounced back in the NFL. He had a really poor season and ended up going to the Bengals and never even played a regular season game for him. So I kind of decided that, it wasn't enough of a comeback, and I wasn't a big fan of the reason he had to come back to begin with. So he didn't quite make my list either.
Yeah. I certainly, I can understand. That's why we do honorable mentions, because they're right there, but they just didn't quite make the list. I also had work done, for coming back. He was one that I had. I actually cheated a little bit. My honorable mention for being a down year, I said Mike Evans was my pick, and Mike Evans is also my honorable mention, because it was just, Mike Evans seemed so obvious to me that I kept dropping him off the list, but I honestly just didn't. I couldn't come up with anyone who had a better comeback off of a down year. And then as far as the injury person, I put in Joe Hawley, because my God, how many times can this guy get hurt and keep coming back? He gets taken out of a game, he's back in a couple plays later. Gets taken out of a game, he's back in the very next game. And he's, let's just face it, he's not a spring chicken. He does not have a long and illustrious career ahead of him. He's kind of on that backside of his career, but man, I love watching Joe Hawley, and I love the fact that he just keeps coming back, and he's gritty and he's nasty on the line. He's just a big bad guy, and that's exactly what you want as somebody who's really at your center. Well, Bucs fans, we'd now like to know how your picks stack up against ours. Do you think that perhaps a different game or a different player is more is more of a comeback player than any of the ones we listed, well, we'd love to hear from you. You can do that by tweeting us at the Pewtercast or connecting with us on Facebook.com/thepewtercast. Or, of course, you can drop us an email at thepewtercast@gmail.com. Well, James, before we get out of here, why don't we take a look at this week's poll?
It's real bad, okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
All right. Well, for this week's poll, we said, in honor of Thanksgiving week, let's ask a fun question. So we said, which Buccaneer, past or present, would you want to invite over for Thanksgiving dinner? So to kind of cover all the eras, for options, we put out Jameis Winston, Derek Brooks, the late, great Leroy Selman, and then, of course, we left it in as a write-in option. James, do you have any thoughts? Who would you want to invite to your Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, wow. You know what? I think I would go with Vincent Jackson. Vincent Jackson just seems like the kind of guy that would be fun to hang out with, to talk to. He's very involved in the military. My grandfather was a member of the Air Force during World War II, and I think it would be fun to talk to him about in his experiences working with the military. Just seems like kind of a cool, relaxed guy. I think I'd probably go with VJax.
That you certainly would have been on the write-in option, which had received 4% of the vote, and a couple of people shot back to us. Somebody shot back to us Jameis Winston, which I was kind of like, he's actually on the list, so he doesn't count. But there was also Mike Allstott who got a little shout out, and then as a fun one from Joe, he says that Alan Cross. He says Alan Cross is a fun guy. The whole locker room yells "Honcho" as he gets interviewed, just kind of as a nod to Talladega Nights. So I never would have picked up Alan Cross, but now I kind of, maybe not Thanksgiving, but how about Sunday brunch? I could go with that. That sounds like a lot of fun. Well, as far as the winner of this particular poll, everybody's going with our current boy, which would be Jameis Winston. Came in at 56%. Derek Brooks came in at 32%. And then the late, great Leroy Selman, I think just showing the age of the people who follow us on Twitter, is Leroy Selman. I don't know. If I had to pick one, I think I'd have to go with Derek Brooks personally, just because he was, he's the guy from that era, and I was a Bucs fan. But to sit down and have a conversation with Leroy Selman, if you could, and just have him tell you stories, I love getting to sit on the back porch and just let grandparents and people that are older than me tell me stories. So that's who I would pick. All right, fans, well, stay with us. We've got one more segment coming back at you with a brand new one called What Are the Chances? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, Pewtercast fans, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for how you have been supporting this show. Whether you've simply subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting platform, or you've taken the time to communicate with us through social media, or have even gone the extra step to rate and leave us a review. Maybe you've left a monetary donation at paypal.me/thepewtercast, or you've taken advantage of your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You have made this first year of the podcast truly more than I could have ever imagined. And if you or someone you know has a business that you would like to become an official sponsor of the show, please email me at thepewtercast@gmail.com and put sponsorship in the subject line. I would love the opportunity to discuss these options with you to help keep the Pewtercast going. So however you support the show, thank you. This would not be possible without you. Welcome back to the Pewtercast. This is episode 21. Brent Allen, James Yarcho of thepewterplank.com are here with you guys today, and we're introducing a brand new segment called What Are the Chances? I'm really excited to do this clip. I picked this up actually from another podcast, and it was a lot of fun. But let's see how it translates over to football. So in this segment, James and I are going to be asking the question, what are the chances that something happens? And we'll just kind of be polling each other off of that. So James, I'll toss it to you first, my man. What do you have for us today?
All right. Well, I have the question of
what are the chances
that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can win the NFC South? And here's what we're looking at. Right now they're a game ahead of both Carolina and New Orleans. A game behind the Falcons, with the Falcons' upcoming schedule of Arizona and the Chiefs at home, at the Rams, home to the Niners, at the Panthers, and they finish the season at home against the Saints. So in order for Tampa to have a shot at winning the division, of course, their remaining schedule is the Seahawks this weekend, then they're flying out to San Diego,
right,
home to the Saints, home to the Cowboys, at the Saints, or I'm sorry, they're at Dallas.
At Dallas. Yeah, at Dallas.
At Dallas, at the Saints, and then home to Carolina. So the goal would be to get to 10-6. In order for 10-6 to happen for the Falcons, you're asking 6 very bad teams. Well, I shouldn't say 6 very bad teams. 5 really bad teams and the Chiefs to combine for 2 wins over the Falcons. On the flip side, you need Tampa to finish out the season 5-1.
Right.
So you need a win over Seattle or over Dallas at the bare minimum. You have to assume that they take care of the Saints and the Panthers, and you really almost have to assume that the Falcons take care of business against the Panthers and the Saints. That leaves both of them at 10-6, but Tampa would have the 5-1 division tiebreaker. Right. So looking at all of that, I give this a less than 5% chance of happening.
And to be clear, you're not talking about making the playoffs. You're just talking about winning out in the division.
Winning the South.
Yeah. You bring up some really great points. Now, I have been advocating for, and I have been saying, that each year each quarter of the season, we want to see the Bucs improve. In the first quarter, they were 1-3. In the second quarter, they were 2-2. Really looking for at least a 3-1 coming up here in the third quarter, which means we could split the next 2 games and still be on track. But then that also means we have to win out for the rest of the year. And when you look at winning out for the rest of the year, going into the Saints Stadium, I think is going to be tougher than people think it's going to be. And conversely, I think that going into the Cowboys Stadium is going to be, and you're going to call me crazy, I think it's going to be a little bit easier than people think it's going to be. And I say that just because the Bucs have been doing so well on the road this year, but they play so often in the Saints, in the Saints Dome. So, and I have a feeling that the Cowboys game could wind up a lot like this game this past week, of people will give the game to the Cowboys and the Bucs will pull one out. Like I see that happening. I don't know. I just feel like that could potentially happen. And I'm not going to call that, until we get closer to the game and see how they do over these next couple of games first. But I think it could happen. I'd give it better than 5%. I'd say, I'm going to say maybe 25% chance. But the culture of winning, Robert Ayers' person in me says, well, no, we're going to win out and they're going to lose every single one. So it's 100% chance we're winning the division. I want to say that, but it's not what keeps the number low for me is not the effort that I think the Bucs are going to put in or what the Bucs can do. It's just what the Falcons are going to do on their side of it. So that now let me ask you this. Let me follow up. What do you think would be easier for the Bucs to do? Is it easier to win the division and get in the playoffs that way, or would it be easier, given a look at what else is going on for the wild card spot, that they could nab one of those?
I definitely think it would be easier to get the wild card position, but you're still looking at having to finish out the season at a bare minimum of 4-2. So you're looking at, if you lose to Seattle and you lose to Dallas, that means you're having to win in San Diego and then win all 3 of your remaining division games. It's going to be a tough road. The way the Bucs are playing right now, I'm not going to rule it out by any means that they could squeak into the wild card. You have Minnesota, who's fallen off pretty significantly since their hot start, and you have the Redskins to contend with that. Are I believe a game and 2.5 games ahead.
Yeah,
one and a half.
Yeah.
There's the tie in there, which throws everything off.
Mm-hmm.
But you're asking for a whole lot of help to get either one.
Right.
So the Bucs have to take care of their own business. They have to win their games and then let the rest of it play out because they can only control what they do.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do about what the other guys do. So I think that's absolutely true. All right, well, I'll jump in here. And actually, I'm going to toss this question to you, James, before I kind of get my thoughts on it. What are the chances that Chris Conte transforms into a fan favorite and safety really isn't that much of an issue for us going forward?
0.
All right, next question. Yeah, you think he's you think these last 2 weeks are they flukes? Is it him doing better, but we still have to get somebody else in there? What are you thinking about that?
I think it's definitely he's improved, and I love to see the improvement. But there's still so much missing from the safety position that Chris Conte is not the answer moving forward. I hope I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he proves me wrong, because if he proves me wrong, that means he's playing out of his skull.
Right.
But there's a reason he got a 1-year deal. There's a reason that Mike Smith is only, it basically has him on a leash for one season to see if he can perform
right
in this defense. But ultimately, I don't think that he's the answer moving forward, and I think it's absolutely a position that's addressed via free agency or the draft or both.
Yeah.
It's definitely a position in need, and as much as I love the way he's played the last 2 weeks, I think it's a 0% chance we see Conte jerseys flooding the inside of Raymond James Stadium anytime soon.
Just out of curiosity, has anyone ever seen a Conte jersey other than the one who is on Mr. Conte himself? I don't think I've ever actually seen one. Do they even make those for sale?
I don't think I've seen any either, and that includes having gone to the city of Chicago while he was there. I mean, I didn't go to a game in Chicago, but there was a game happening while I was in downtown Chicago, so there were Bears jerseys everywhere, and there was no Conte.
Yeah, and I don't, honestly, I don't know if in today's NFL a safety is going to make enough plays to become a fan favorite enough to sell jerseys like, say, one John Lynch who did, a few years ago. But that's another.
Outside of Earl Thomas and Eric Berry, probably not.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I tell you, I agree with you on this. I don't want to say 0. I'm telling you, there's a chance, but it's like 1%. Now here's the thing. I wouldn't mind. I think I'm going to wind up feeling like Chris Conte, like I do about Evan Smith. Like I wouldn't mind us drafting a really good safety and then keeping Conte in as a backup. Because he could be serviceable, particularly if he continues to improve. So wanting to see him in as a backup, I'd be okay with that. But to be the solution at safety, I agree with you. I just don't think he's it. These last 2 games, awesome, and that notwithstanding. And like you, I'm going to give him. Well, what's he got? He's got at least 7 more games, I guess, to change our minds on that. So, all right, moving on. What else do you got? We'll do one more. What are the chances?
All right, well, I'll ask you this then.
Okay.
What are the chances that Jameis Winston averages 231 passing yards a game for the remainder of the season?
Ooh. Now, an average means some games he'll do better and some games he could do worse, but that's where he's going to average for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he's got to hit that 231 mark as the average.
And how many touchdowns did you say?
No touch. Not worried about touchdowns. Just the yard.
I could see him doing it. I'd give him better than half, maybe 60, 65%. Particularly as the rest of the wide receiving and the tight end crew, continue to come online as much as they have been. 231 yards doesn't seem like that much to me for a quarter. Man, I'm gonna jump that up. I'm gonna say 80% that he averages that much over the next bunch of games. I'm gonna say 80%.
All right. The reason I ask is he is currently 1,385 yards away from tying Josh Freeman's single season passing record for the Bucs.
Huh.
So in order to break that record, which he was only 40 yards off of last season, he has to average 231 a game. This season, he's thrown under 230 yards 3 times, which was 179 against Denver, 180 against Oakland, and 219 against Carolina. And he's thrown for over 250 6 times.
Right.
So I have given Jameis Winston a 98% chance
there you go.
to break the single season passing record set by Freeman.
Now, see, that's not fair because you asked me a question where I didn't have all the numbers sitting in front of me, and you do research like that. No, I am going to. I don't know if it'd be fair for me to change it, but man, that sounds great. I didn't know that he was so close last year, but I got to tell you, I would love to see Jameis beat the ghost of Josh Freeman just one more time. I mean, I don't think he's around haunting the Bucs at all. I really don't, but. Just for that little, let's get his name off the record board and let's put Jameis's up there. I would be all for that. I think that's great. Let's make that one.
Well, and I think facing the Saints secondary twice, you get the Panthers secondary one more time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a real good chance that he easily averages that 231 that he needs. And it'll just be one of many, many, many more records that he looks like he's going to be breaking for this team. But once I started to dive into to look at how far he is away and what's left and what it would take and what he's done, it's like, you know what? I think he does it.
Yeah, he could. He absolutely could. All right, James, I got one more question for you. What? Right. And this is kind of a cheater because it's the same question, but it's kind of doubled over. So you might give 2 different answers, and that'd be all right. And this is coming off of some stuff that I've seen from just some other Buccaneer media outlets, let's say. And I think it's worth talking about. What are the chances we see Levante David and or Gerald McCoy traded in this offseason?
A 0.5%. I don't want to go 0 back to back, but I'll say 0.5%.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. All right. I don't see them getting rid of one of the best defensive tackles in football. I think if either one of them, gun to my head, you guarantee me that one of them will be traded, I think it would be Levante before it would be Gerald McCoy, as unfortunate as that would be. But I think teams would realize the asking price, first of all, for McCoy would be higher. And I think there's enough teams that have seen what Levante is capable of doing in certain schemes, like what we saw under Greg Schiano when he had his best years, that realize what a asset he would be to their defense, and they would be willing to pay kind of that steep price that he would cost. But I really don't think either one of them is in any danger of being traded. I think it's going to be one of those things where Mike Smith is going to continue to figure out how to best utilize Levante within his scheme, because that's something that is going to continue to evolve. Just like we've seen the way that the offensive scheme has evolved in Winston's second year, it's going to take Mike Smith more than one offseason and more than tweaking during the regular season to really be able to utilize every guy's strengths the way that they should. It's another one of those things that we have to continue to give Mike Smith time. It's not all on Lavonte. And don't get me wrong, some of it is. Mm-hmm. And there are plays that he's missing. There are plays that he's leaving on the field, and we've all seen the regression that he's kind of gone under. Mm-hmm. But he's far too talented of a player to not end up being used in some way to benefit this defense.
Yeah, it's a sticky subject, and I want to clarify my position on this. I have said several times, and I'm going to dip back into that C word, that we're going to talk about the culture. And you have to look at every player on your team and go, is this person good for our culture, for the locker room culture? Not just are they a good player, but how are they around the culture of the team? And I don't care if it's Lavonte David, Gerald McCoy, or even Jameis Winston. You got to get them out of there if they're poison to the team. Okay, I have said that time and time and time again. Jameis Winston is absolutely not poison to the team. He is life. He's lifeblood. He's life-giving. He's the soul of the team. I do not believe that Gerald McCoy is poison to the team. In fact, I think he's one of the better components of the team. What I don't know is where Lavonte fits into all of that. I think Lavante's a really great player. I just don't know. I'm not saying that he is poison. I just don't know. And, could he be having a down year? Could it be he's learning a new defensive scheme, as you kind of referenced there just a little bit? It's, what is it going on? But he is talented enough to continue on this team that we know going forward. And that would be the only question. So for me, I give Gerald McCoy a 0% chance. I'm just going to lay that out there. And I'd say Lavonte David, I really don't know, but like you, if I had to pick between the two, I would say it'd be Lavonte over Gerald, but I don't see either one of them really doing it. But for Lavonte, just for weatherman percentages, I'm going to say like 10%. For where they get in there. So I don't know. That's I don't see that happening for either one of them. And I don't think it should, definitely for Gerald McCoy. And for Lavonte, I'm really just not, I'm not sure how he fits into that, using how he acts as part of the culture as a litmus test. So, all right, James, I think that's going to wrap up this segment, my friend. And along with the segment, that's going to wrap up the show. Pewtercast fans, if you want to get in contact with us, you can do that on Facebook.com/the Pewtercast, or you can do it over at Twitter at the Pewtercast, or you can drop us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. You can leave us an iTunes review or reviews on any of your favorite podcasting platform. You can leave comments on our YouTube channel, because we have one of those. You can we'll check them all, and we do respond to every comment that comes in. Or you can call us and leave a voicemail. That number is 864-729-BUCS. That's 864-729-2827. That's actually a new number that we had to replace the old one from this past week. So you can do it that way. And James Yarcho of pewterplank.com, thank you so much for being here, my friend, and being on the show once again.
Oh, always a pleasure.
Yeah, and why don't you tell the people out there how they can find you and your work on the internet?
Oh, well, of course, you can visit us at thepewterplank.com. We're on Twitter at thepewterplank, facebook.com/thepewterplank. You can find my personal Twitter account at jyarcho. It's YARCHO _Bucs. And yeah, that's about it. Just getting ready for the Seattle game, which, Earl Thomas is out, CJ Prosise is out, so the Bucs may be able to take a little bit of advantage, but it's going to be a tough one, man.
Yeah, it sure is, and I'm definitely looking forward to this game. This is one that I've been looking forward to all season. This game, particularly. James, thank you again so much for stepping into the show and being here. It is always fun to have you, and let's make sure we get you back on the show here in the future. Well, fans, listen, Thanksgiving is here, and there is a lot to not be thankful for, honestly. With the state of our country and things that are going on, there can really be a lot to not be thankful for. However, we got here, and whatever else is going on in the world, there is still a lot to be thankful for. And walking around with a little bit of gratitude in your heart really is the key to having a healthy soul. We all know that people that are like that shriveled up, bitter old fogey, that no one really wants to be around those kind of people. But the truth is, they don't have to stay that way. A little bit of thankfulness, maybe even a little bit of that Christmas spirit that's on its way real soon as well, can change a heart. After all, it did for the Grinch. So until next time, guys, happy Thanksgiving, and it's time to fry us up some sea chickens. Go Bucs.